morning tip.
Good afternoon. It is August 28th, 2023. You're listening to a little column A, little column B, hosted by Will Lemanos and co-hosted by Zach Bishop. How are you doing today, buddy?
What is going on, Will? We have made it. Last week, week 0, college football has officially started. We officially have FIBA games that actually count. And this Saturday, there were just all sorts of sports, real sports. It wasn't even just like, I'm going to kind of try to force this. No, stuff that I made sure I was awake so I could watch the FIBA. And then in the afternoon, Notre Dame kicked off the football slate. I think there was only a handful of games, but that was a bunch of fun. And I'm definitely more of a college basketball guy than a college football guy. But you better believe, as soon as Notre Dame started scoring touchdowns over in Ireland, oh boy, was I fired up. I was a big fan of that. So yeah, I am in all the way on college football right now.
All right, you want to talk about some FIBA basketball? No, okay.
Let's go. That's how it started Saturday. I made sure my alarm was set. I made sure I didn't get too crazy Friday night because I wanted to be up. I wanted to be ready. It was not nearly as early as the that Women's World Cup game, but I said, you know what? America's playing. I'm going to be up. I'm going to be ready. You made sure you were already up. You were already ready to go, and just keep me accountable. And I was there. I saw a tip, ready to go. 8:45
is not. It's not that early. If anything, this was complimentary to the East Coast. It's certainly asking for a lot more in the other time zones. So I had no issue with this. This was great to wake up and kind of have something to throw on immediately, and not only have something to put on, but there ended up being some really good games over the past couple of days, and it's nice to have them kind of queued up to play later. If you have a Hulu account with a Disney Plus or ESPN Plus or whatever that ends up all being bundled together with, it actually works out pretty good. You can see some of the older games. I did notice when you go to the older games, because it's still the Hulu platform, they're labeled as episodes. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, but it was like, yesterday's episodes was just like yesterday's group of games. But I have been entertained, and I was entertained with Team USA. I think a lot of the issues we were kind of reiterating from the previous game, it certainly happened again. I think this game, a bit of a slow start, a competitive game against New Zealand, of which I don't know if you heard about the warm-up, but I think everyone's been critical of the starting lineup kind of being a little disappointing and getting off to a slow start. Did you hear what they had to do before the game? The laundry list of things that happened before this game started? Like, you get, 30 minutes to warm up? Like, of that 30 minutes, like 20 of it was occupied by a team photo, a dance routine for their first opening ceremony, the player introduction, the national anthem of both teams, the New Zealand war dance, the haka, which was also a thing, and then there was some drama. There was an imposter fan in a New Zealand uniform that got on the court that they had to then scoop up. It ended up being some like huge Instagram follower person that I don't even know anything more than that. But like all of this happens right before the game. The rumor and the report I was getting is that the Team USA really only warmed up for like 10 minutes. Is that enough?
It looked that way.
Is that enough of an excuse for the way the opening was? I mean, Kerr pulls 4 subs in the first 5 minutes, and I'm shocked he waited that long because it was not a great start. I'm happy with the way we finished, and I still have a lot of faith in this team. But, man, some really rough shooting. I mean, what are you supposed to do with Anthony Edwards and Brandon Ingram? I thought they got the shots they wanted. They're just not going in. Is it more than that?
Like I said, I woke up ready for tip. I did not see or hear all of that hoopla that happened ahead of time. And I'm more on the, hey, no excuses, you're a professional. But kind of part of being a professional is that you have a set amount of time to prepare accordingly. And okay, this is what I do. I wake up at this time. I do this walkthrough. I take a nap. Like, everything is very regimented. So to have all this stuff thrown at you that, I made a joke about they were doing the haka beforehand, and that distracted these guys, and it was intimidating, and that's why they got off to a slow start. But I do think if you don't get your full amount of warm up, I think that would distract you and would take you a little longer to get going. And it really did look like the second string, the bench guys were better than our starters.
I think I said earlier that they're just the more consistent roster. Tyrese Halliburton, Austin Reeves, Paulo Banchero, they have been our steady anchors, I think, throughout all of this, and they are the playmakers. They are the guys that don't look scared. They are the guys that are also just making shots. It may boil down to just that play the guys that are making shots. I do think.
Do you think it's that they are legitimately better, or do you think it's the competition where our bench is going against the other team's bench. So, the starters are, hey, you're pretty close to NBA level. You can hang. But once you get to that next step down, just no team is nearly as deep as our team is, and they're able to just feast on that.
I think Tyrese Halliburton, Austin Reeves, and even Paulo to a certain degree, those three guys are looking at the opportunity of the roster they're on and are so grateful that they're not being double-teamed, that they have these options to swing the ball around to versus I'm not sure if Brandon Ingram really views the game any differently playing with everyone here. I think he's still trying to score on his own. He's not very good off the ball, and he doesn't really do a whole lot to make others better. So it's strange when he's cold, essentially. And Anthony Edwards has kind of been the guy that we've nominated as the leader and probably our best shot maker. And that all might be true, but so far he's getting a lot of open looks that I have no problem with him taking, but he's just not making them. I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than I think the bench looks like they're thrilled to be playing with superstars, and the starters seem like I can't believe I have to pass the ball to these guys. Maybe that's a bit drastic, but that's a huge difference of mentality when you're going out there. Things just seem to be just flowing real easy off the bench, though, with that second lineup. I mean, it just seems effortless. We seem way faster than the other team. We seem like we're making better defensive plays. The one thing I'll give the rest of the world credit for, we've been talking about how the world's catching up to us and that there's all these international players and a lot of international stars, but defensively, I think the world still holds up really well. They can be very physical with Team USA, and I don't think our athleticism is quite the advantage that it was, 15, 20, whatever years ago. I think they've caught up to some degree. Like physically, there's some really big guys out there that are throwing guys around. I mean, today with Greece, there's just big bodies out there. I think I said we should throw in Kessler. I was like, just throw another guy to throw a body at some of these guys in here, just because we're getting beat around with these undersized guys, and certainly it's an advantage offensively. But I think it's just more credit to the rest of the world than anything else. But I don't feel worried about this at all. I still think this team can get it done. I think there's other teams that are interesting. Have you caught any of the other games?
Not really. Just because the American game has been the last game, and the other games are starting at 4:30 in the morning, so I have not been getting up that early.
Well, Canada's pretty good. I think you could argue that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander may possibly be the best player in the tournament right now. They have just been great. He's incredibly. You just can't stop in the offense. On the transition, he's impossible. There's no guessing with it. You're going to end up fouling him, or is it just going to end up pulling up easy for a layup or a jump shot? I just think that team could score, and I worry about the Dylan Brooks, Lou Dort game where those guys just get hot and score, and suddenly that they have a solid defense and they're putting up points. I think that's the team I'd be most worried about. Latvia is a team that just continues to upset everyone, even without Porzingis. So that's kind of just more of a wild card. Germany has played very well.
France is already out.
France is out, and that's a tribute to Latvia right there.
That was
care
a surprise.
Is it?
They have NBA players.
They have NBA players that are barely playing. I like Nick Batum. He's a role player. He's not much of a difference maker out there. Rudy Gobert, high contract, but man, that's just. I don't want to.
But I'm just saying. I think Rudy Gobert has a bigger advantage in the international game than in the NBA, where there's no defensive 3 seconds. There's the different goaltending rules. So I just thought you could almost play it more like college teams play it, where he doesn't have to worry about staying out of the lane. You could just kind of park him down there, and it just really deters guys from going into the lane.
See, the problem with all that is you would have to be good. Still, like it doesn't make a different, and that.
You're just out. I'm just Gobert out. Is just toast.
I'm
There's
out.
Nothing there.
I'm out.
Okay.
Everything you just said should be true. Why didn't that happen? And you could make the. God, who's the guy? He was on the Celtics. He was on the Knicks. He fell out of the rotation.
It's not like he's playing the prime Warriors right now. He's playing other European teams.
Evan Fournier. He doesn't. He can't even crack the lineup of the Knicks right now, which aren't even a true championship contender right now. And yet he's supposed to be the star over here. He scores a bunch of points, but it doesn't lead to victories. I just think that these guys are nice players. They're certainly NBA quality, but to say that they're threatening in any other way, and even as a group right now, I just don't think is really that shocking. I think a team like Lithuania that just has like Valanciunas, who's a monster on the boards, is far more intimidating than Rudy Gobert is. I don't know why. He shouldn't be that way, but the difference making is just not there with him. I don't know. It's a chance to
Maybe I'm
be
just
hard
getting
on
caught
Rudy.
up with I read down the roster and it's I recognize these guys. These guys are NBA or were formerly NBA guys, and then other teams. I read through New Zealand and just no names stuck out. So just like, hey, if you got some names that put you ahead, and I'm not even saying they were going to win the whole thing, but you figure you'd at least get out of group stage. And they're the only ones I've heard that have been eliminated. I'm sure there's other teams that are eliminated, but that's the one that's really stuck out and has been getting harped on.
You would think knowing the NBA names and recognizing the NBA names would have more success than the teams where you don't even recognize a single one.
Why didn't Wemby play? Sure seems like they could have used him. I heard that he's the best player in the world right now.
Well, have you heard the rumors of the potential triple towers of France coming to the Olympics? They're going to be the host coming up, and the rumor is that Embiid may declare as a French resident or whatever it ends up being, and they may have Gobert, Wemby, and Embiid on this team. Still got to pass it Evan Fournier. I think that's still a flaw of this team, but that's certainly intriguing. The other teams across the nations do not have anything remotely close to that size, so it's just something to think about. I don't know if it'll happen. I actually doubt it'll happen. There's a chance he could play for a variety of other countries as well. Embiid, bit of an international wanderer here, so it'll be just something to keep an eye on, especially after I'd call this a failure this year. I think I don't know if they were like a lock to medal, but I think they had an expectation of being contenders for a medal, and to not even advance out of the first with the names that you'd mentioned, it is disappointing. So I wonder if they do make some sort of adjustments or pitches, being the host coming up. Going forward, I'm really just keeping an eye out on Canada and Germany and the U.S. I don't know if there's any other threats out there, but if you're waking up early for something, those are the teams I'd keep an eye out for, because you may see something cool, man. I'm just intrigued by the Canada team. Outside of FIBA, I saw that you shared a basketball poll of basketball superpower options. There were 4 options, and I actually didn't hesitate on all this. I think there's one answer, and it's the right answer every single time, but I will tell you the 4 options. It was LeBron dunking, Steph Curry shot making, Kyrie Irving handles, or the Kobe mentality. I'll let you answer first, because I actually had issues with the categories, because of the LeBron advantages, I think I'd much rather just be his size than have his dunking ability. And then of the Kyrie handles, I think I'd rather have his finishing abilities, all the layups and the scoops and the hook shots, the lob shots. I think I'd rather have Kyrie's finishing skills than their handles. But do you agree with that? And which one did you pick?
Well, I didn't come up with the poll. This was floating around NBA Twitter last week. And I was just shocked by the results. I was so shocked that it's like I need to talk about this with somebody else, because I read it and immediately said I would like to dunk like LeBron. That seems like that would be what most people would want to do. It was far and away Steph Curry's shot making. I want to say he was at 80%, and the rest were all sprinkled on everything else. And I was very surprised by that.
Not my choice. Was that your choice?
No, I told you.
Oh, you
I want
did the
LeBron's
You did the
dunking ability.
Oh, I went with
I can shoot 3-pointers right now.
Kobe mentality.
Having Steph's ability to expand the range, that'd be cool. But I can't dunk right now. So if I got LeBron's dunking, that would be something that I would add to my game that I have zero ability right now.
If you had the Kobe mentality, you could do it all. You can do the handles, you can do the shot making, you can do the dunking, you can do the training, the dedication.
The Mamba mentality is the craziest brand oversell in history. The mentality of just he tries hard and likes to be a jerk to other people about no, winning, that's the only thing that matters. He stole it from Jordan. It's not original at all.
It doesn't mean it's not more effective than any of the other skill sets. I think with the mentality, you could do all the other skill sets.
There's no way.
With the LeBron dunking, you're not learning how to dribble.
I could have all the focus in the world. I am not going to develop LeBron's dunking ability because I tried really hard every day.
Not with that mentality. Absolutely not. There's no argument to this. This is the only right answer here. I don't understand the other options at all. You can't accomplish it. None of the other options help you accomplish anything else. The mentality helps you accomplish everything.
I don't get what the mentality is. How is it different than grit? How is it different? How is it Kobe's thing special compared to any other athlete that is just focused? You think he's more focused than other elite athletes? You think he's more focused? His mentality is different than LeBron's mentality?
No, I think their commitment to the game was very, very similar. I think they have a very similar mentality, but LeBron's mentality wasn't on the list. I would have picked that too. I would have picked Tom Brady's mentality. There's a whole bunch of successful people, but I'm saying out of this superpower skill set, I would rather have the mentality than any of the other ones.
Why don't you just use that right now?
I can, but I'm answering the poll here. I do have it. I'm doing a podcast right now. I've been doing it for like 7 years. It's once a week. There's another guy who does it over the phone.
What does that have to do with Kobe's mentality?
He's doing what he wants. He's focused on the things. I'm focused on the things I want. This is my mentality.
I don't think that's what the mentality is.
For the podcast?
No, for the translation of it.
Oh, what do you think it is? You think it's just you get a bunch of branding and commercials?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think it is.
I wouldn't mind that too.
I think it's like I said. I think it's brand nonsense that has gotten blown way out of proportion.
That's just the column B mentality. That's you need some more column A in you.
I don't know about that.
All right, enough basketball talk. It's not even basketball season. I love FIBA, but that's nonsense. That's some real summer topic. What we need to do is prepare the listeners as well as ourselves and put a stake in the ground and claim all our NFL picks. We're doing the NFC South today. Before we jump into that, let's do a quick little NFL news update since there was a trade this week. Trey Lance, former of the 49ers, has been traded to the Dallas Cowboys. I just love the drama that incorporates all of this, of all the teams end up going to. This is perfect. I can't wait for Dak to struggle a single game and for this to come up as such an unproven guy who may not even be healthy at the moment is on the Cowboys, and the bandwagon's already happened. Are you jumping on the Trey Lance one, or do you think Dak actually finishes this year out? Or does Trey just out of the league in a year? Because that's more the reality that I'm getting a sense of.
That seems to be more where it's headed. I think he's got a better chance, but you're going to be the third string guy in San Francisco. It wasn't like the guys ahead of him were, absolutely elite guys. So if you can't beat them out, now you're behind Dak. And I think this is just worse for Dak because he's had his struggles with interceptions. And so now if there's a possibility of a young guy behind him and he starts to struggle, then it just gets thrown out there. So I don't think that's good for him, but I think that he'll be solid enough. I don't think he's going to completely fall apart where the team will actually say, let's go with Trey Lance here. I mean, do you put like some packages together for him? I mean, that's so college. They don't really do that in the NFL.
Why else are they trading for him? I don't understand this. I understand the value of being able to grab somebody where the Niners have such a sunk cost in all this because of the draft day trade to get Lance to go up and do all that, and then holding on to him for however many years here with the injuries, and then getting what they got back for him certainly wasn't anything, but they did get something, and they don't necessarily need him this year despite being desperate for him the past couple of years. I just don't know if I would have wanted to welcome this to my team when I already do have a starting quarterback that I'm pretty comfortable with. I much more would have rather made a trade for Lance if I was at a questionable quarterback or maybe even just another young guy who just hasn't been in the league for 2 years. That
especially we're a week out from the season starting. Maybe it's less than 2 weeks, a little more than a week, but there's not a lot of time here.
It's a questionable trade. I don't blame the Niners for moving on. I'm not sure if I was Dallas, this is the move I would have made or the guy I would have wanted to add. We could be totally wrong on the upside of this could be massive. I just don't like
he was the number 3 pick not that long ago.
I've seen every time I've seen him play, it hasn't looked great.
You can't make misses like this. Like I can't believe last week, we're talking about the 49ers being Super Bowl contenders. Like I think did we both say we thought they're going to be the ones coming out of the NFC? And it's like not that long ago, you had a huge miss.
Yeah, imagine you get that right. I mean, just imagine you get the number 3 over the pick overall, and Trey Lance ends up being an awesome quarterback, and he's healthy the last 2 years, and who knows? I mean, we don't end up with Brock Purdy right now, but we don't end up with Jimmy Garoppolo on and off, and then there's just a higher ceiling to it all. And I'm fascinated to see what
partially
happens.
Christian McCaffrey at quarterback
That's
in the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe they should have kept Lance. Maybe it's worth having a third string when you're the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know. It's interesting nonetheless. I'm sure it'll be a storyline because Dallas doesn't really know how to ignore any storyline. So I can't wait for this to kind of linger and hang around and just poke at Dallas all year round. Yeah. Let's do this.
I got one last thing. I got one last thing to put a little bow on this that I saw someone had posted, and I had to actually look it up. So the Cowboys gave up a 4th round pick. That is the same round pick that the Patriots gave up for Randy Moss back in 2007. So just to give you an idea of like how low people were on Randy Moss at that time. I mean, it's practically 2 decades ago, so everything's like a little bit different, but just both traded for 4th round picks.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident saying that he's not Randy Moss. I don't think he'll ever be Randy Moss. But that is a funny
that's also
value.
fair.
It is a funny value thing here. All right, how about we start with the NFC South? Now, I have a lot of notes in front of me. I have a lot of numbers crossed out and a lot of reordering and rearranging to the point where I may just make all this up off the top because I don't have a whole lot of confidence in anything of either of these divisions, the AFC South or the NFC South. I feel a little bit better about the NFC South, so we're going to start with that first. Somebody new is like what is it like 75% of the time there's like a new division winner every year. It's like the team that half the teams that made it the year before don't make it the next year, so it's not unusual for this to be a new team. That being said, I don't like any of the options across the board here, and I've kind of settled on the Atlanta Falcons being the number 1 team of the NFC South. I just think that they can run the ball better than any other team, and I looked across their schedule, and there really isn't an offense that fears me where I don't think that the issues that they're going to have on scoring are really going to come across as an issue. Like, I don't think there's any defenses they need to worry about. I don't think their defense is that good, but I'm not even sure if Desmond Ritter's that good. But I think Bijan Robinson, this offensive line, Cordell Patterson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts is enough to win this division. And it's not saying much, but it's also just acknowledging the other dumpster fires across this division here. If you go across their schedule, I think they have 3 games of which they may have a hard time scoring with the other team, and that's at Detroit, maybe at Jacksonville, and maybe at the Jets. Those are 3 maybes. I don't even think those are the greatest offenses, but I'd say those are the only ones that I think you're going to be worried about Ritter not being able to score. I don't think this is Super Bowl bound, so I'm not saying there's pure dominance here. All these teams might split win-loss with one another, but I settled on this because you go through the other ones and I don't feel great. Did you have Atlanta as the winner of the NFC South?
No, I did not.
Did you have them at 2?
I had them at 2.
Okay, I feel a little bit better now. Comfort me a little bit. Who'd you have at 1?
I went with the Saints at 1. Similar to what you said, you kind of look through this division and just go, oh boy, that's not great. You go through the quarterbacks. Saints have Derek Carr. You got Desmond Ridder, who you just mentioned on Atlanta. This is his 2nd year. This will be his first full year if he makes it through. Panthers are going with first pick Bryce Young, and then the Buccaneers are picking up Baker Mayfield, and he has not been so successful. So I don't think that Derek Carr is any sort of world beater, but out of all the other guys, he's like the adult in the room. So just on I think he will make the least amount of mistakes. I'm gonna go with him. I think he's got Olave, and Alvin Kamara will come back, so he is gonna have some weapons around him, and I think it's just gonna be enough. He's gonna have to play these other teams, and I think he's just gonna be able to come out on top, just being competent.
All right, here are the arguments for New Orleans. They may have the best quarterback in the division, which again is not saying much, and they may have the best defense in the division, which also may not be saying much. There's a known commodity in Derek Carr, but I also think that there's a known ceiling with it that comes with it, that I just can't say it's going to get better than this. But that may be good enough to win it too. But I'm taking the field. I'm going with Carolina at 2. I put New Orleans at 3, and I put Tampa at 4 just because of the unknown potential of Bryce Young. And I don't think Thielen's bad. I don't think Miles Sanders is bad. I don't think DJ Shark is bad. And I think their line's solid. And if they could just run the ball enough, that there's a division here where this could actually work and this could actually be a lot better. Versus, I won't be shocked if New Orleans is just mediocre and that a better potential comes across and just has a higher ceiling and that develops in a season. because again, all they got to do is beat each other right now, and none of these teams have a great punch, and all of them I think could beat one another. It's like I don't. The only one I don't think really has a chance is Tampa Bay, and that Super Bowl hangover certainly kicked in, and I don't think Baker will finish the year with them, and I don't know if it'll just stop with who's ever up next after Baker. They may run through like 3 or 4 quarterbacks this year in Tampa Bay. I think that's gonna be a pretty rough year. I could see this rotating any other way too. I could see Carolina winning it. I could see New Orleans winning it. I could see Atlanta winning it. But if I had to bet on them, I'd go with Atlanta 1. I'd take Carolina 2, and I'd put New Orleans 3, and I'd put Tampa Bay at 4. How did your list line out? What do you have at 3 and 4?
Panthers, then Buccaneers.
Yeah, no love for Baker, right? I think that's the only one I felt good about was the teams that I was picking last.
Well, I think they have a shaky O-line, and I was actually just listening to Mike Lombardi on Bill Simmons earlier today, and I think Mike Lombardi does a really good job. He gets into the X's and O's a little bit better. I think he makes it just with his analogies makes it real easy to understand. But saying that having a good quarterback, it's like a deodorant for the rest of the team, and so it'll hide some of the other smelly parts. And they've had Tom Brady over there, and I think we're going to find that there's some smelly parts that when Tom Brady isn't there, it's going to stink.
All right, fantasy tips for this division.
I would gamble on Bijan Robinson.
I think I would too. I wrote him down. I actually think I would gamble on Cordell Patterson at the right price, or whatever other running backs they end up having in Atlanta. I just think they're going to run the ball a lot. I don't have a whole lot of attraction to Drake London or Kyle Pitts because I just think they're going to run the ball a ton.
I hope Kyle Pitts is healthy this year. It seems like he's one of those fantasy guys. The past couple of years, there's just been a ton of hype about him, and it's like when this guy's healthy, yeah, he's going to be, absolutely amazing and going to set the world on fire, and he just hasn't been healthy. So just as a fan of football, to get a tight end that's just amazing, I think that'd be fun.
And then last week, I think I said Olave, and I think you said Michael Thomas. Obviously, you want to get them at appropriate times. I wouldn't be reaching for them, but if they're there and there's not much of a reach, I think they're pretty solid bets. I mean, Carr's going to be slinging that thing around. I think skill-wise that those may be some of the most talented people in this whole division, so that hopefully pans out just fine. But I'd be high on Bijan. I wouldn't take him number 1, but I would take him in the first round, and I wouldn't hesitate on that. All right, AFC South. Moving on. You want to go first on this one? Who do you got up top here? You want to be the one to guess this one, this shaky division here? Because I've rearranged this one more than anything else.
Sure.
Who you got at 1?
We once again, as I do with all these, quarterback is the most important position on any NFL team. And going through the list, you have Trevor Lawrence, got some promise. Things look really good. You got Ryan Tannehill. I don't know so much, with 2 young backups behind him. They drafted another young guy, kind of wondering what the deal is there. Then you have 2 rookies on the other teams there. So I think it's just real easy. You just go with Trevor Lawrence. He's not going to be the MVP of the league, but he is an above-average quarterback, and I think he can get the job done. And just all other 3 are, I guess, the 2 rookies are unknown qualities, and I think we kind of know what Ryan Tannehill is, and I put him more in the Derek Carr situation of, just kind of middle of the road, shouldn't kill you, but is not really going to jump anything out. But Trevor Lawrence, he can win you some ball games.
I'm so out on Jacksonville. I think this is all fake news. I think Calvin Ridley hasn't played in 3 years. I think the Jacksonville line is bad. I think their defense isn't improved. I like Christian Kirk. I like ETN. I hope that they find a rhythm, and I do like Trevor Lawrence. I think he is by far the best quarterback of this. I think they have a bad line, and it's not going to matter. I think he's going to have to win games for them, and that's going to be really hard if they're not able to keep him off his back. I think Tennessee still having Derrick Henry is a huge difference, where if the other team just doesn't put up a lot of points, they're going to be able to get the job done just running the ball and scoring off of just field goals. Tannehill has been better. He wasn't very good last year, but I do think bringing back Treylon Burks, who will be healthy this year, adding DeAndre Hopkins is also a huge addition. He was much, much better when he had A.J. Brown on his team, who he lost last year. Hopkins should certainly be an addition that even if it is Tannehill this year, that'll be an improvement. And coaching. I just think Vrabel, I'm giving him the Belichick points similar to like Saban I would in Alabama, and In Denver right now. He just signed. I'm blanking on it. I just talked about this last week. Who's the coach in Denver now? He was in New Orleans.
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton. I'm adding wins for Vrabel. I just think that his coaching is really, really solid and a lot more trustworthy than a lot of the other question marks across the board here. I think Anthony Richardson is certainly interesting in Indianapolis, and I think that there's a world where if Jonathan Taylor was just willing to cooperate and they were willing to cooperate with him, that could be a truly lethal combo of some run options here, having Jonathan Taylor or holding on to it with Anthony Richardson. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately, is it seems like that marriage is over. And then I think the interesting thing with Houston is that they made so many moves for their picks this year that they don't have a first-round pick next year because they made a move to get the defensive guy this year. So, like, they're not playing to tank is what I'm saying through Houston. Like, they have to play to win. Like, losing doesn't really help them going forward into next year. So I just think that's interesting versus last year. I know they were for sure tanking for picks. They don't have that advantage this year, and I also think that they're the least talented team in the division. So it'll be interesting whether they have a little extra push here, and they're not going to be the pushover team I think they were last year. I got Jacksonville at 2. I got Indy at 3. I got Houston at 4, and I'm going with Tennessee at number 1 for Vrabel. I don't like it. I don't like Jacksonville. I don't like that they've just nominated Calvin Ridley as this instant comeback player of the year. Who's the last guy that missed this much time and came back and was relevant?
Well, usually when you miss this much time, it's because you tore your ACL or, I don't know, kind of the weird Michael Thomas, like some sort of injury that lasted a while. He just missed it because he was suspended for gambling. So he should have been able to work out in the off season and should be fine.
I don't think he'll be fine. I don't like a player that's missed for those reasons, as well as there were some mental health issues over there. This is a hard game, man. It's week to week. I don't trust him. I just don't trust him. And they've immediately said, like, this is going to be a triple threat with all these guys, and I'm not buying into it. I'm not buying into it. There's a chance it works out great, but I just don't. I mean,
he's not even past 30. I see no reason why he wouldn't be able to get to that level he was at before.
All right, so you would draft him.
Oh yeah.
I had him. He was a keeper of mine in Atlanta. I was a huge fan. I thought he was.
I would say if he was past 30, or if this was an injury, even I think if it was injury the past year, I think it changes it a little bit. But I don't think because you got caught gambling and you couldn't play for a year that you just like forget how to play football. I'm sure he was still training and still doing everything and ramping back up. And I think it's gonna have way more to do with the chemistry with the quarterback. Anything to deal with that, than. He's not gonna forget how to play football. That's all I'm saying.
I would draft Christian Kirk over him, and I would not take Calvin Ridley this year. I wouldn't. I'm not scared. If you want to draft Lawrence, the quarterback selections are kind of rough, and I suppose you could look at it as a bright side that he gets to play everybody in this division every week. But I just think it's gonna be a lot sloppier than everyone's expecting. I don't think this team was remotely close to dominant last year. I thought they made some excellent plays in some big games, but across the season, it really wasn't anything to be frightened of, and I think the consistency of Tennessee is far more reliable than anything I saw from Jacksonville last year. I'm out on them. I wanted to put them. If Jonathan Taylor was lining up and said, like, I'm all in on the Colts, and all this didn't happen the last couple of weeks, I'd have Jacksonville at 3. I fought like hell to try to find a way to put Indianapolis or Houston even ahead of Jacksonville. I just couldn't find a way to do it. It doesn't make any sense. Jonathan Taylor's your best player. He's not coming. You don't want him there, and you just signed another guy who's never done this before. Like, this is stupid. This should be so much better for everybody if they just paid Taylor the money that he's worth and see what they got with Anthony Richardson and him. Because I do think that could be a really, really lethal combo that the rest of the league is just not ready for. What is it about Vrabel that you think like moves the needle? Like I get with Sean Payton, he and Drew Brees, they had a lot of success together. They did things, but I mean. I like him because he's a former Patriot, but the guy went 7-10 last year and ended the year on a 7-game losing streak. So I just don't see him as this, oh no, like he's got to figure it out kind of dude. I think a lot of things went wrong last year, and he was still able to get the wins he got. It wasn't a great finish of it, but look at everything that happened. I mean, he didn't have offensively. It wasn't quite what they wanted. They had no aerial threat, and I think they just have a little bit more of that from last year. That's something to go with. They'll be better than they were last year. It might not be anything spectacular, but I don't think Jacksonville's better than they were last year. I'm not sure if Tennessee's that much better than they were last year. But I do think bringing Hopkins in and Burks can stay healthy. Those are two threats you didn't have last year that could maybe make this work. There's also this what if of unknown of what if the Will Levis guy is good. That's possible, right? Is that insane? Like, what if Anthony Richardson's good? What if C.J. Stroud is good? C.J. and Dameon Pierce and what do they got? Robert Woods over there and Dylan Schultz. That's solid. Like, what if that's good? Is there
one wide receiver on the Texans that's getting drafted in fantasy? I think C.J. is he's not exactly getting set up for success with those skill position guys.
You wouldn't. I would take Schultz, the tight end, for fantasy. You wouldn't take him even with the rookie quarterback staying away. I
don't know. I mean, you gotta pick somebody.
I think he's a safety blanket.
I meant more the actual wide receivers. I mean, he's a pass catcher for sure, but. Eesh.
I'm with you on the receivers, but I think I would advise. That was gonna be my fantasy tip. Is I would draft Dylan Schultz. I thought he was excellent for Dallas. I thought it was actually kind of a huge loss for them there. And I think if the rookie's going to fall in love with somebody who's just safety blanket, this guy checks that box. The other team's going to know that too, but he's going to have to throw to someone. And I don't know if it's going to necessarily be deep routes. It could be just short little dinks and dunks, and I think Schultz will do that well. Fantasy tips for this one. I wouldn't take Calvin Ridley. That's one. I would take Dylan Schultz. That's one. What do you got?
That can't be right.
What?
It's not Dylan Schultz.
Oh, it's not Dylan Schultz. Never mind. It's a Schultz. Oh, it's a Schultz.
Yeah. Dylan Schultz was a guy from high school. Oh yeah, he was like, no, that sounds right. Then it was like, wait a minute. These
are the comments that I will get on the Facebook right now. These are the messages I'm getting of like, hey, you said the wrong name. Like, well, did you know who I was talking about? Like, yeah, but all right, then leave me alone. All right, you know who I'm talking about. What is the first name, though? How do you not know this?
Well, now I can't think of it because now all I can think of is one. Now you got it in my head. Oh man, what a mess. No, my fantasy advice for this one is don't gamble and pick Jonathan Taylor. This could really just be a moot point because I think a move has to happen sooner rather than later. But from what I've been seeing in drafts, he is still going right pretty much where he would go if you knew he was playing. So I guess the assumption is still whatever happens, he's going to get it figured out. But I wouldn't draft him. I don't want to be dealing with that. Your second or third round pick and is unsure. I think you're going to get burned.
It's Dalton Schultz. I was not that far off. Dalton Dillon.
No,
right?
That's where it was so close, but it was like it's not quite right. And once you put it in my head, I couldn't think of any other names that began with D.
The names you haven't said in years. That's it's like I just blindsided us with old knowledge. Like open a closet door to a name I haven't said in forever. Dalton Schultz. I would draft Dalton Schultz, the football player. And Dylan's a great guy too. I would draft him as well. I'm sure he's very competitive in his own league, but he's on the fantasy side, I imagine. Would you draft Anthony Richardson, or would you draft any quarterback in this division outside of Lawrence?
Well, with the caveat, I did draft Anthony Richardson last night, but it was a 16-team league, so pretty deep, and so just kind of got to a point, and you got to pick somebody. So I don't know if I would do it in a standard 10 or 12 team, but it's one of those things with a deep league like that, and you kind of had to remind me midway through, you're just going to have holes places. So you got to kind of pick. Do you want the hole at tight end? Do you want it running back? Where do you want it? And so I'm really hoping that he's an electric player, maybe in the Justin Fields mode where, the team's not winning a lot. He's really not throwing the ball that much, but he is running and he is just racking up the points. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
I think there's hope he could rush. You kind of spoiled it because you said you were out on Jonathan Taylor, but one of the questions I had written down here was, do you think Jonathan Taylor or Anthony Richardson will have more yards for the Colts this year, rushing yards? But obviously, if it's trending towards he may not even suit up for Indianapolis, that it's really not much of a question anymore. But in the scenario that he did play and he did suit up, I think Anthony's gonna have a ton of yards this year, and it'll be kind of like Fields last year, where there may be a bunch of interceptions and turnovers. tagged on to it, but I think he's going to be out there and he's going to be competing. And one of the things I wrote down for fantasy advice here is that you may want to draft one of the defenses in this division because they're going to be playing one of the teams in this division. I don't know which defense it would be, but by the end of the year, you're going to look back and say, well, if I'd had this one defense who played one of these three teams every week, that I might have had a decent shot. I can't advise for it against other teams outside the division, but I do think that there will be a winner somewhere in here somewhere. You got any guesses on which one you would maybe take a stab at? Like, is Tennessee the one? Is Jacksonville the one?
I don't know if I want any of these.
Don't want any of them. Right.
I don't think that defense is that any of them are that elite that you get the advantage, where the defense has to be pretty good to take advantage of a bad quarterback. So if your defense is not that good, then I think you're better off with other strategies.
I guess I was just more hoping that you'd get the rookie quarterback that has no idea what they're doing, especially early on. I think that's an opportunity to maybe take an advantage. But,
always an option. But I think something to think about is these rookies, all the ones that we've talked about. Anthony Richardson, 4th pick. C.J. Stroud, 2nd pick. Bryce Young, we were talking about the NFC South before, number 1 pick. So these are like the top of the top. So have known for a while that they're going to be starting. This isn't like it's week 4 and, maybe like a Ryan Tannehill goes down and now all of a sudden, well, we didn't really want to start this guy, but we're kind of forced to. It's, hey, we drafted this guy high. We want to know immediately, is this a franchise quarterback and he's going to be our guy for the next 10 to 15 years? Or do we have to go back to the drawing board? So I think just think all rookies aren't created equal.
There's going to be a lot of them playing this year. I have no idea if this is a good trend or a bad trend. Like,
probably bad.
Are half of these guys even going to be playing quarterback in 3 years? Like,
no.
Are these bad teams just going to constantly just shuffle through all of this top talent every year?
I mean, you can go back and look at the past decade of top picks, and for whatever reason, it's just really hard to evaluate in college beforehand.
All right. How about we do a little recap of last week's poll, which actually ended up being a draw here. So it means I wasn't right, and neither were you. No, I have no idea what it means. There's definitely a little biased poll voting going on there, maybe a little scandalous, but I appreciate everyone for voting. We'll post up another poll again this week. Make sure you're following us on our Facebook page, Little of Column A, Little of Column B podcast, as well as Zach at his Twitter and our Twitter, which are...
Mine is Wicked Seaman 24, and the podcast is LCA LCB Podcast.
And we're going to try to get that YouTube page up and running a little bit more, really push some more content, a lot of short clips and stuff like that you can find on Facebook as well as YouTube, and our Instagram, which is the same as the Twitter, LCA LCB Podcast. Trying to make that a little bit more active. I think this is our peak season right now with the FIBA going on and football kicking in. We do picks every week leading into basketball. Very, very exciting. I did see a couple other minor basketball stories lingering kind of just outside of this. I saw some Giannis stuff that was a little head scratching, and I saw some Knicks.
Oh, before
Raptors
you go
stuff.
to basketball, do you want my fantasy football advice for the week?
Oh, there's more. Yes, we do.
Yeah, I came up. Well, last week I didn't realize you were going to be asking me specifically for each division. So this week I've prepared, and I had one for each division, and then I have like one more kind of almost general, like I did last week with the suggestion, or was Michael Thomas, but was just saying when you get to those later rounds, you're looking for boom bust guys. So this week, what you want to do is when you get to that similar round, and on top of looking for boom bust guys, this is kind of part of it, look at the week 1 rankings, not just the draft rankings. Once you get down to that point, like I mentioned last week, these guys aren't going to start week 1. They're probably not going to start until a bye week. So all of the draft rankings, they're all looking for between now and the end of the year, what is a guy projected for? But really, you might just be looking for, hey, what's a guy going to do week 1? Who's backing up Alvin Kamara? All right. Yeah, he's not going to play once Kamara comes back, but for right now, you know what? He might be worth it, especially in some of these deeper leagues. where a week 1 win, it counts just as much as a full strength week 9 win. So make sure you're look at those week 1 rankings, see if there's any guys that are way higher, and you might be able to get a sneaky start, maybe at a flex spot, just something to help you out with.
And don't draft Calvin Ridley.
That's Will's advice.
What about Michael Pittman? We staying away from him?
He worked out real well for you, right?
It wasn't his fault. Somebody has to throw the ball.
I don't remember all the. I don't remember the details around it, but I remember being on your team, and I remember that you didn't have the funnest of fantasy time. So I just imagine it was because of Michael Pittman.
It was Javonte, who is somehow still running for Denver this year. It doesn't make sense. He should be out for, I don't know any time frames anymore. You're like superhumans. You go some international place and they fix you, and then you come back and you're just ready to go in months. That was a big loss last year, and it terrifies me of his future going forward. All right, a couple more basketball news here. I saw Giannis making some statements talking about not wanting to sign with Milwaukee long term until a championship roster had been essentially brought to him in Milwaukee, which is kind of a strange time to be saying something right now. Are we shocked by this? I mean, I don't think there's shockingness that he's trying to get them to do as much as possible. I just thought the announcement of it was a little un-Giannis-like. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. This just seems to be the direction that the NBA is going in, but it is odd because Giannis usually doesn't make these sorts of statements, as well as they've won a championship not that long ago, and one of the reasons that they won it is because they moved mountains to get Drew Holiday there. So it's not like they don't have the appetite for it. I'm sure if they're not in the luxury tax, they got to be close to it, but they used a ton of draft capital sending it to the Pelicans. You can only play that card once, and then you have to wait a while till you restock your draft capital. So I'm not sure what Giannis wants them to do.
I thought they kept all the key rosters players that they wanted from the previous year. You know, they bring back Brook. Middleton, in theory, should be even healthier going again.
Brought back Robin?
Sure. An addition right there. I think Giannis being hurt is also something that's forgotten right now, where he almost breaks his back for like 2 games and still comes back and plays in the first round last year. That's, as long as he's healthy, I'm not saying that they have no chance of I'm not saying they're locked to be constantly for a championship team contending, but I think as long as he's on the team, they have a decent shot at always being there. They'll need a little bit more help around him, but I don't think it takes that much. I think the hard thing is just finding a player like Giannis, and that they have a guy like that. So whatever it takes to keep this guy happy, there's no getting anything back for him if you trade him. Like, what could you ever ask in return for Giannis? There isn't an equivalent. So you have to do whatever he says to all this. I just find it fascinating because he's such a team-forward player. I mean, even in like the All-Star game, he's drafting Middleton ahead of everyone else. We all know Middleton isn't worth the first pick of that All-Star game draft. He's borderline lucky to be even in the draft. So I think it's all fair to say, but it's also like they have made some moves, and I don't think the moves have been nearly as boneheaded as some of the other teams that have been kind of strangleholded into the situation where they just have to do everything. But of the guys that I would move mountains for, I think this is one of the guys that's worth it, right? Like the Giannis, you do whatever you have to.
I think there's other organizations that are on the cheaper side, or you haven't shown that they're willing to be all in. I think that Milwaukee has done that. They're a smaller market, but like I said, there's only so many times you can do here all of the assets, all of our draft picks for this guy. It's all right. Well, this is the team now, and the team gets older, and you can't just flip an aging Middleton for a younger, newer, less expensive model. That's not how it works.
Yeah, the talent across the NBA is also constantly growing, where I think some of these older guys are just going to get aged out eventually if it isn't already happening now. There's a whole new crew of young guys coming in every year. All right. I did see that you had some Knicks Toronto business drama, of which there's a lawsuit. Someone's being sued.
Yeah, the Knicks. A complaint accuses a former team employee of funneling proprietary information to Raptors management. What makes this super unusual is that we as fans, it's, we're Celtics fans, so the other team fans, they're the others. And, it's all split up. Like, we're this team, they're that team. But really, the NBA, it's the association. That's the company. To them, the different teams are just different sections of the company. So that's why you don't really see this. That's to do with the whole collective bargaining agreement and all of the rules there. That this is supposed to be taken care of by the league. This is not supposed to go outside of the league to the legal system. So this is super unusual to see this.
Is it also always happening though? Like, does everybody have somebody in the office of another office?
It must.
Like,
so this must have been extra malicious. I got to imagine this is similar to what is it? You can't, talk to free agents ahead of time, but there's ways of back channeling, and it's almost legal cheating. So I got to imagine this is a situation where it's pretty much constantly happening. If you work for one team and that team says, we don't want you to work here anymore, another team says, we will offer you more money, better role or something, you go over there, and then you tell them what the other team, what they're doing. I mean, definitely there's probably some proprietary information there, but there's probably a way to go about it. And I just think it must have been so blatant or something. There's some real bad blood around or something for them to try to make this a legal case.
What do you think they have? They must have some sort of proof to go to this degree. It's not really benefiting of the accusation, because I think you could make that accusation to every team any time. Like, they must have caught, like, somebody screwed up, and it's not even that you broke the rule; it's that you got caught. That just baffles me a little bit more to all this. Like, is it an email? Like, what they found text? Like, there has to be a communication path of something that's alarming enough to go to this degree, as well as, like, what do you think it was? Do you think it's like they're unhappy? Like, Evan Fournier is really looking to get out of here. Like, what? I just wonder what it was. I wonder what the controversy could be.
Yeah, that's what I wonder. Yeah, what's this proprietary information? Because that makes it sound all fancy and everything, but is it just, hey, guess what? The Knicks love to trade their first-round pick for an aging superstar. Yeah,
or is it just like, hey, the guys don't really like playing 40 minutes a night. Like, Thibodeau is,
yeah, right.
Is
it, or, I mean, I'd love for it to be some sort of basketball wisdom that we've never heard, and it would knock our socks off. But it's just, hey, 3-pointers are worth more than 2-pointers. I don't know if you heard.
I got you. RJ is really a righty, or Julius is really a right-handed. Like, he's been doing it wrong for all these years. This highly proprietary information getting out there. Watch out.
That might even be a HIPAA situation there.
Oh man. All right, we're closing out here. You started with college football. I kind of railroaded you into stopping here, but how about you give me something to look forward to this Saturday? We had week 0 last week. I believe you got week 1 this week. Anything in college football we should keep an eye out for?
I don't have anything real specific. Week 1 is not necessarily you got like the juiciest of matchups. It's just more we're going to go quantity over quality this week. I think we have games starting on Thursday. I think we might even have some games on Monday. It's just cool. College has like this standalone week, long weekend, tons of opportunity to watch football. You don't even need to worry about NFL. You don't need to worry about your fantasy team just yet. You can just find a game throughout the whole week, normal times. You don't have to wake up early. You can stay up as late as you want watching these games. There'll be West Coast games, all sorts of fun things going on. I think all the ranked teams got to be playing, and it's going to be a lot of blowouts, but with there being so many games, you're going to find something. There'll be some upset somewhere along the way, and just fun. Football will be back. It'll matter. Get your bets in. Have a good weekend.
And lastly, what division you want to do next week? Did I say North next week? Is that North? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, no, we got to do both next week.
North and East.
Yep, because next week is the last pod before we will have NFL football.
All right, well, best of luck in all your fancy drafts. If you don't get to us before our next podcast, we're going to try to get it out next Monday. I know I got a draft that day, so it's all happening. Game day's right around the corner here. Enjoy your college football and root for Team USA. It's not that early. It's just early enough. Get it out of the way early. Just get on the treadmill. Go watch the game.
You say that Wednesday's game, you're going to find out who the true Americans are. 4:30 a.m.
Not a problem.
Weekday.
Easy. Not an issue. All right, we'll be back. Thank you as always for listening.
Little column A, little column B.